280. For public virtual attendance, you may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. Commissioner or Vice Chair Ty Menser is in the boardroom, as well as Commissioner Gary Edwards. We have County Manager Ramiro Chavez and Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell. We have members of we have staff members joining us either via Zoom or in the boardroom. So to start off today, we will start with a motion approving the agenda.
I can do that if the, but who?
The Vice Chair just came in.
Okay.
So let's make a motion. Madam Chair, I would move to approve the revised agenda for the agenda setting work session for Tuesday, August 9th, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion on this? I'll call for a vote.
Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Menser?
Aye.
Commissioner Mejia?
Aye. Motion passes. With that, County Manager, did you want to say something before we move forward?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The reason that we had to change the agenda less than 24 hours notice is we had to cancel the Board of County Commissioners board meeting that was scheduled for this afternoon at 2 o'clock. And the reason is as follows. Back in July 19, 2022, the majority of the board approved an ordinance outlining the how the board meetings should be conducted. Within that ordinance, there was a provision that states that all the board meetings should be conducted Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And also within the ordinance, it states a provision that we need to post on a schedule Friday prior to the upcoming week of all the board regular meetings, since the 2 o'clock meeting is no longer listed on the new resolution as a specific board meeting. So within that context, we missed to post the 2 o'clock meeting on the weekly schedule based on the on the resolution, on the ordinance that you passed on July 19, 2022. There is not a violation in my perspective of the Open Public Meetings Act because the agenda was posted 24 hours in advance from for this afternoon's meeting, but it was a violation on the ordinance the board passed, and as the result of that was the for me to make the decision to cancel that meeting to be in alignment with the new resolution, the new ordinance the board passed. That is really as to why we ended up canceling. This matter was raised by Mr. Pettit. It was just before 5 yesterday. And I responded affirmatively that he was correct and that as a result, we will be canceling that meeting. So that's the reason why. Any questions related to that?
Questions?
Commissioner Edwards has one.
Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
Are we going to now need to make some adjustments to the ordinance?
No.
Because of this?
No, sir. Okay. I think as the process changed as a result of the ordinance, I think it's something we need to learn as to how we need to align the actions based on the ordinance the board passed. No.
Okay. Thank you.
And as a result of that, we moved the items from today's meeting to next week's meeting. And that was for the meeting of August 16. So we will review the items combined for the next week's meeting this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions?
No.
No, ma'am.
Okay. So before I move on to homeless strategies, I do want to thank both Vice Chair Menser and Commissioner Edwards for holding the fort last week. I really appreciated them stepping up. I couldn't be here for some personal reasons, so I just wanted to really give my thank you to both of you. With that, we'll move on to homeless strategies.
Good morning. Arno with Public Health and Social Services. I just have a brief update for you today. The work with the right-of-way initiative continues. We are continuing to meet twice a week with our partners at the state and locally. We have our contract in place with Safe Place, so they can begin working on finding if there's anyone on the right-of-way who is actively fleeing domestic violence or human trafficking. They can be placed in hotels. You may have noticed that there was quite a lot of activity yesterday and also today along any of the Pacific Avenue interchanges off of I-5. They are just cleaning the area. A number of, I think 2 sites have been completely cleared and cleaned, and they're working on the one, if you're driving towards Lilly, you're driving east on Pacific towards Lilly, it's on your right. There's usually a structure there. There's often a fire that you can see or some smoke coming from that area. Most of that area has been cleared and cleaned, and they're continuing to work on that today. Individuals that are being displaced from these actions are required to receive meaningful offers of housing. So every single person who has been impacted, which is only a handful, around 5 or so individuals have been offered places to go, and that is Unity Commons. So that effort just continues onward. And I'll give you weekly updates. We are also continuing to move forward with the hen transition. We had a meeting this last week, or no, I'm sorry, it was yesterday, with Live Stories to begin the process of moving the vouchers and the payment requests to Live Stories so they can begin cutting checks for arrears and move-in costs and deposits and the like, and also prep for sending out September's rent on time. We were able to get August rent out to all but just about 6 households that were being served by the hen program for August. Those 6 remaining are due to just needing more information from landlords that we have as of yet to receive. So we're hoping that we hear from them this week so we can remit that payment as soon as possible. And then Partners in Prevention Education, or PIPE, have been taking on the case management, and we continue to meet with them 3 times a week to ensure that we're in lockstep with just moving forward with this transition. And that's all I have for you this morning. Oh, I did remember. I apologize. I just remembered one other crucial development that I learned of yesterday. There is a sizable camp behind Crown Bottle, which is off of Phones Road. It's on private property. It's grown to about 50 individuals. The city of Olympia received an email from the owners of that business that stated they received a $90,000 grant. I don't know where from or how to have that camp cleaned. So that camp with a sizable number of individuals will be cleared on the first week of September. There is no plan currently for where those individuals can go. But as this is an operation that is being facilitated by a private property owner, it's not part of the right-of-way initiative. And so there's no requirement for offering housing to those individuals. So as I learn more, I'll let you know, but that is occurring. We have a significant number of camps that are going to be cleared in the next 6 weeks. Most of whom have plans for where they're going to go, and then others that do not. So just wanting you to be aware of that. And that is all.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
I do not have any questions, but the county manager has his hand up.
Questions, Commissioner Menser?
No.
Okay, County Manager?
Kelly and Commissioners, forgive me, in the last 2 weeks, you have provided an update related to the MOU that we have with related to commerce. I just signed the MOU on behalf of the county, and I think the recent developments is that perhaps within that MOU, the commerce is going to be fully funding the purchase of a motel. And I believe that is moving forward, and I apologize if the board has already been briefed on that particular item. So if not, here is, I think we're moving forward, and I believe that is in direct link to what you just referred this morning related to the sweeps on the state's right of way. As we move along, also within the MOU includes contributions and investments to the Franz Anderson to improve that site as well. And also that is being contributed by the state. So that is, I believe, from my humble point of view, a good step forward, because it's not just about sweeping the camps, they're also providing the next steps. And within the context of purchasing the motel, there is an outfit, I believe, at this point that will provide case management as well to those individuals that will be housed within this hotel.
Do we know which hotel they're targeting?
At this point, we know, but I can provide that information on an individual basis because that negotiation is still underway.
Got it.
Did I miss anything, Kelly, in that?
No, thank you for refreshing or bringing the board up to date on that. I have not given that update. I don't know if Tom has.
Okay,
I don't think
thank
so.
you.
Okay, I apologize. With that, we'll move on to review the Board of County Commissioners draft agenda. So this is for our meeting on Tuesday, August 16th, 2022. We'll call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Edwards, approval of the Tuesday, August 16th, 2022 agenda, and approval of the board meeting minutes from August 2nd, 2022. Any questions on those items?
I guess I do have a question
Go
on the topic in general. Do we have anything that is time sensitive? And if we do, or if we needed to, is there any reason that we couldn't have a meeting sometime later this week rather than waiting? I mean, is there anything time sensitive?
Yes, sir. And on your agenda today is the Black Lake Regatta application that's a time sensitive. And I will introduce that this morning. Again, I couldn't have the board take a final action on that because we didn't provide 24 hours in advance. So I have this item for your consideration to approve the application this Thursday during Commissioner's check-in.
Okay.
And that agenda has already been posted as a final action. So thank you for bringing that up. That was the only critical item that has a time sensitive since that event is happening this weekend.
Okay,
Could I do a follow-up
Thank
to
you.
that? I know Commissioner's check-in is not televised since there's going to be a formal action by the
Yeah, so
board.
we'll televise that. And
Okay.
we'll make sure that the agenda is listed. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Questions, Commissioner Menser? With that, we'll move on to presentation. We have introduction of emergency management manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That introduction is supposed to be happening this afternoon, but next week you will have the opportunity to formally be introduced to Mr. Peter Tassoni as the new emergency management manager. And I believe he will be attending in person for you to welcome him to the county government. And here is Ben Miller Todd to add additional perspective if needed.
Ben?
I don't have any additional perspective, and you'll get the chance to meet Peter Tassoni coming up on the 16th.
Great, thank you. Questions on that presentation,
and,
comments?
and Peter is replacing?
Is replacing. Okay.
Peter is replacing Sandy Ecker, who is the emergency management manager for Thurston County.
She retired earlier.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. With that, we'll move on for the opportunity for the public to address the board and county manager's update.
I don't have any specific county manager's update on this day. No, nothing to follow up. But certainly if there is something comes up during this upcoming week, I will make sure that I will address that next Tuesday.
Okay, thank you. We spoke about this at Commissioner's check-in, and it was about Mr. Lehman's public comment in regards to
the Board of Health.
I sent a response, as I said I would. I can tell you what the
Yeah, I was like,
response
can I
is.
ask?
I'd have to pull it up real quick, but I should have that available. My response said, thanks for sharing your concerns. The board discussed your comments this morning, and we wanted to share our understanding that nothing the BoCC or Board of Health has passed is currently limiting TCSO's ability to book different kinds of offenders in the jail. And we have completely rescinded the county's emergency declaration related to COVID. Any recommendations coming from Dr. Abdulmalik are interpretations of state and primarily federal rules around congregate care settings, not any local ones. I, for one, this is just my commentary, I, for one, leave decisions around TCSO's operations to the relevant elected official, Sheriff Snaza, and that is the law. I know some policy decisions have been made by the sheriff about what types of arrests would allow TCSO to most easily comply with state and federal COVID limits in the jail. So perhaps this is a discussion your team can have internally with your TCSO leadership about how to best balance the federal restrictions and public safety considerations. Hope this helps. This was kind of a joint-ish discussed response to Mr. Lehman, who was concerned, I'm just bringing the county manager up to date, he was concerned that they weren't able to book some lower level offenders in the jail because of, and he was really pointing to the Board of Health. He thought the Board of Health had imposed restrictions on the jail. And the board was like, don't think we've done that. So we just wanted to make sure he knew that we haven't done anything locally. There's federal and state guidelines about congregate care settings that apply to jails. But we certainly haven't done anything to restrict what Sheriff Snaza could do in terms of who he books and who he doesn't.
Oh, good.
So that was my response to that.
That was a really good response. Questions?
No question.
Okay. Okay, moving on to consent items. We have a few. Don't make plans next Tuesday afternoon, commissioners.
Well, actually, the consent items hopefully will.
Hopefully we'll go through.
Consent
We'll
item
review this, yeah.
3A is the approval of the voucher list.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Items 3A and 3B
Yeah.
are the approval of the voucher list. Item 3A is for the week of July 11th, 2022, and has an amount of $2,083,671.25. This item is on your consent agenda because it does not include any atrium-related payments. Item 3B is for the week of July 18, 2022, and has a combined amount of $2,131,460.18. And again, this also does not include any atrium-related payments.
Okay, questions on item A or B?
No question.
Moving on to item C, request to cancel outstanding warrants.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm gonna assume that if you reviewed some of the items last week, my apologies, I'm gonna just cover it like you haven't. And so,
Yeah, some they've seen, some they have not.
so I just gonna go through that. So under RCW 3622-100 and RCW 3956-040, provides that registered or interest bearing county warrants not presented within 1 year of the date of issuance. The county legislative authority can cancel such warrants. So the warrants before you that amounts to $13,014.87 are all those warrants dated prior to June 30th, 2021 from last year. It includes 35 warrants dating of $981 totaling related to jury services and mileage. They have not been cashed. Also includes some Superior Court vendors of 5 warrants for $315.19. There is a specific warrant to an individual. I'm gonna remain not to state that that person is for $55. There is one warrant by the Puget Sound Energy for $660.34. And there's 2 large warrants totaling of $10,900. One is related to an executor of a will, and the other one is the Department of Transportation, $250 they have not been cashed. So that totals to $13,014.87.
Can I ask a question? Because I've never, and I apologize, I'm like skipping over here. I've never seen a cancellation of a warrant before, so I'm wondering, like, what happened, like, why we get to that point.
We do that every year, so we did.
Really? We did that last year,
We've
then
done
I'm
that
just
about every
blanking
year.
out.
They should do it
Yeah.
every year. I'm not sure that
And we
it's
did that in
brought forward every
2021.
year, but
I don't remember it last
Did
we
we
year.
do it?
should. My question is, are these items then reported to the Department of Revenue, who adds it to their unclaimed properties lists, so that if any of these people came forward, they could then get what the county owes them?
No, it's just unclaimed warrants.
Be-
So that is something that we need to work with the auditor's
We
office.
do need to work
Yeah.
with the auditor's office on that, because I believe that we are required to report these things to the Department of Revenue.
So we can delay this item. I think there is a matter of urgency. But at least from my history, the board has vacated warrants in the past.
We have.
Maybe it was done last year, and I don't remember. Maybe it was something where I didn't know, so it's
It's
something I'm
it's
catching
just
up to now.
payments, the county issued checks.
Oh.
And if those
We wanna
checks are not
cancel the
in-
checks, that's appropriate.
Oh, okay.
That's what.
Commissioner Edwards?
I see the treasurer, Mr. Gadman, is in the room. Do you have anything to add to clarifying any of this?
So these are warrants that are generated out of financial services. Well,
Except for the spot.
I mean, we get, in my office, we issue a lot of refunds and such. Every so often, one doesn't get cashed. Generally, we'll write a letter to the recipient and say, hey, we go 2 years. We say, hey, you haven't cashed this yet. If you want to reissue the warrant, then just sign this letter below. Let us know where you want it mailed to. But yeah, and even then, a lot of the letters, we never get a response back. But this is all out of the auditor's office, what Ramiro's talking about.
So with this 13,000, after those 2 years, can they come back and kind of be like, well, completely forgot. I remember that,
This is
had to check for this.
where if we report it to the Department of Revenue as unclaimed, I think they call it unclaimed property. You can go onto a Department of Revenue claim, enter your name, and it'll pop up if you've got unclaimed anything in any amount of money. And if you can prove that you're entitled to that money, then you can get a payment from Department of Revenue. I don't know what happens behind the scenes, but I think that there was recently a change in the state law that would require us to report these items as unclaimed property. And there's stuff that hangs out on that list for years.
Commissioner Menzer, I'm sorry.
I don't have any questions.
Okay.
So I will, I'm sorry.
I guess a follow-up to that would be, do we also need to send the Department of Revenue the revenue that is?
The money, I don't know. I've never
Okay.
done the other side of I've claimed things off that list, but like, I had a refund from it coming from the University of Washington when I was going to college, and about 10 years later, someone had told me they saw my name on the list, and I looked it up and I went, oh. And I could prove that, yes, I was going to school at that time, and yes, I had paid for something, and they sent me the money. Now, I don't know if they got it from the UW or how that all works, but years later, you can go back. It was like $23, some stupid small amount of money.
Might the auditor know that?
I will follow up
we
with the
should,
auditor's
we
office.
should check the
Okay,
RCW, yep,
so
and
I
work
will-
with the
I will-
auditor's
I will
office.
follow up, so if this item is not on your agenda next week, it's because we need to do additional steps. But certainly I will address this question next Tuesday.
Okay.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So item D through K are all appointments to different boards. One to the Agritourism Advisory Committee and the other are appointments to the Racial Equity and Inclusion Council.
Would you like me to list them all, just for the benefit of the public?
Go ahead, sir.
So the first appointment for your consideration is to the Agritourism Advisory Committee, is to appoint Mr. Nathan Allen for 1 year with the expiration appointment of August 16, 2023. The next appointment is for Mr. Azimuth Jackson to the Racial Equity and Inclusion Council. And this is a 3-year appointment with an end date of August 16, 2025. Next appointment is for Ms. Evelyn Clark to also the Racial Equity and Inclusion Council, again for 3 years with the end appointment of August 16, 2025. And next is Ms. Juliet Lawson to the Racial Equity and Inclusion Council, also for 3 years for August 16, 2025. Ending appointment. Next is Mr. Kioki Kawanoi to the Racial Equity and Inclusion Council, also for 3 years with an end date of August 16, 2025. Next is Mr. Jason Clark to the Racial Equity and Inclusion Council, and again for 3 years for August 16, 2025 end date. Next is Mr. Marlon Wakefield to the Racial Equity Inclusion Council, again for 3 years with the same date of August 16, 2025 end date. Next is Ms. Tadissa Gainer to the Racial Equity and Inclusion Council, again for 3 years, August 16, 2025.
Questions on those appointments? I know we had conversations about this last week. Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Menzer? Okay, moving on to item L, which is the approval of the Thurston County Boards and Commissions Handbook.
This is an item that has been in the radar for the board and the support staff. As you may recall, we developed a Boards and Commissions Handbook that has been revised by the board. The board provided some comments. The last step in the process was for the Prosecuting Attorney's Office to review that. That has occurred, and we'll be ready for the board taking action and approving the handbook this next Tuesday.
And where's the handbook?
I can probably provide you a copy. We have distributed that copy in the past, but certainly I can give you.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah,
hasn't it?
we'll give you a copy of that.
It's been such a while that I would really like to be walked through the relevant changes, like from,
Me too.
Okay,
thank you.
so would you like to have that as a department item and I can walk through specifically, or
I don't care if it's department or consent myself, but once I'm made myself comfortable again with what we're changing, and
okay,
I just, maybe next Tuesday morning, and
I'll walk you through, yeah, I'll
we
do
can
that.
just go through what's new and updated in this handbook.
And also I will distribute a copy for your review today.
Okay.
So we're gonna,
I do have
Go ahead.
additional
Yeah,
follow-up on
go
that.
ahead, sir.
The affected boards and commissions, have they had an opportunity to review this, to give us input on maybe what will work and what won't work? I just haven't, if I missed it, I missed it, but.
No, I don't believe that we have extended. I think the boards and commissions are waiting for this handbook.
They are, but I wonder if it wouldn't be beneficial for the Board of County Commissioners to at least ask affected boards and commissions, this is kind of what's in the works here. Is this gonna work? Because we can't possibly know all of their activities and how things will or will not fit. And I just hate to just impose it without any input from those different groups. Can't tell you how many groups there are that'll be affected. Haven't got a clue.
It's quite a few.
But I think it would be premature or for us to imply that we know everything and this is the best, I think is a mistake without having some feedback.
So,
I just have some concerns on that, Commissioner Edwards, right off the bat, and I'm happy to discuss this more. My concerns are that the delay of this, I know a lot of advisory boards and commissions have been waiting for this, and this would delay it by months and months on end, because some of these committees don't meet on a monthly basis. They're not like our planning commission who meets pretty often. Some of them only meet on a monthly, others meet on a quarterly basis. Others haven't met yet, and to try and, again, wrangle so many commissions and boards, I think would be an undertaking which would delay this for way longer than what it needs to be delayed. I mean, we've been waiting for this for a very long time. I know several boards and commissions have been waiting for a very long time. And honestly, we need some structure in our advisory boards. And I would hate to continue without any sort of structure moving forward. So at this point, like I am in agreement with all of you that I would like to kind of have a refresher on this, because we did review it a while back ago. But delay it until we get, comments back from all of our advisory boards and commissions would delay it for way too long of a period of time. That's just my initial
I'll, if I
gut reaction.
maybe I have a compromise proposal, because the ag committee I know was waiting, and we just gave up, and we just went ahead and appointed the ag folks. So I'm not sure if any committee's like actually hanging fire on any piece of business or appointment on this. It's been so long. What if we sent it to the chair of each committee and say, the board will be taking action on this in 30 days? If, put it on them. If they think it's important enough to distribute, maybe they only meet quarterly, but if the chair is like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be controversial, they can email it to their members. Or we give the chair 30 days to chew on it, respond to it, and we say, we're gonna take action on this early in September. Please if you have any concerns.
Yeah.
I don't know, as a way to balance Commissioner Mejia's point, which is this guy's get done.
I
versus-
appreciate that perspective. Maybe, I think your point of having a refresher on the handbook, I think is good. And I think that will probably give the board perspective what
Controversial stuff is in there or not?
My humble perspective is a very high level. What allows is just consistency as to how they conduct meetings. It doesn't get into the level of detail of their business themselves, because each commission have
Very different.
agenda. So we'll review maybe next Tuesday in detail.
Discuss this
and
again after we review.
Discuss this again, and if that is the compromise the board wants to move forward, certainly we can do that.
I guess I don't remember everything that's in there by any stretch of the imagination. And I think that your suggestion really makes sense, because who should know the most about the committee or commission, whichever group is being referenced, but the chair. So this has been like a year and a half or something,
It's been a while.
I think, at least. And so I don't know what it would hurt to give those groups 30 days through their chairperson and then do the review after we get their feedback back. I have to say, I am never in favor of rushing into something, and I know a year and a half, you can't say we're rushing into it, but I'm just not in favor of not getting as much information as we can. I guess I'm gonna use, I believe staff was well intended when they came up with this rule thing on the lakes. Well, we see that didn't go over very well with the lakes folks for whatever reasons. We
But
can,
that's completely different than this. I don't wanna mix the two because then we're gonna go into like this
I won't say
sideways
anything about
avenue.
lakes.
no, I'm just saying, using that as an example, that has nothing to do with what we're doing right now. I'm just using that as an example. What's it gonna hurt? Send that out to each board and commission, to the chair, and say, hey, we're gonna do this next month. And then do it next month, I guess. I would certainly like to have input from affected parties. We're asking those boards and commissions to do a lot of work, if you will, in the name of good government for the citizens of Thurston County. To push that through, even though we're asking for a little bit of a review, red line review, or whatever you're gonna refer to it as, I think this cannot hurt to ask the chairs from each one of those groups to review and give us some comment if they've got comment or concerns. I don't know, what is there, 40 groups or something?
It's quite a.
I mean, we got a bunch. And I don't wanna lump them all in the same kettle, so to speak. I don't know what the stew would taste like if we do that. So I am very much in favor of the vice chair's recommendation. So that's where I'm at.
So let's just tentatively go with that, subject to further discussion after we review the red lines.
So that's what I wanted,
Somebody
a
wants-
clarification. You want me to, I was thinking give you a copy for you to review this week. We go in more detail next Tuesday. And then you reaffirm that proposal next Tuesday, or you want to just take this item out and we just go send that to the chairs? I'm just trying to.
I was under the impression that from the vice chair's recommendation of a compromise, I think it makes sense, that we go ahead and send it out, do the red line, fine. We need to have that anyway. But let's get it out to them as soon as we can, so that 30 days can start or whatever, right now, rather than delay it anymore.
That's what I tried to clarify. What is the intent of that proposal?
I live with that.
It's both of you.
Get it out there.
Okay, so I'll take this item from your consideration next Tuesday.
And it'll be like
I will still gonna be distributing the copy.
It could be a commissioner's item next week rather than an agenda item.
Yeah, let's take this out. I will distribute the copy to you, and also, I work with Jamie to distribute that to the chairs of the boards and commissions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, item M, contract with Rainier School District for a school resource officer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a renewal from the Sheriff's Office to provide a resource law enforcement officer to the Rainier School District on the school year beginning 2022, 2023. And this has a $40,000 compensation from the school district through the city of Rainier. And Under Sheriff Brady is here to add additional perspective.
Hey, good morning, Commissioners. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any. As the county manager advised, this is a renew.
There we go.
What's that?
Can you start over from the very beginning? Your audio was not coming through, sir.
Yeah, can you hear me okay now?
We can hear you okay now.
Okay. Yeah, so I'd be happy to answer any questions. This is a renewal of a contract that we've had for several years now with this Rainier School District. And it's in conjunction as well with a contract that we have with the city of Rainier for law enforcement services. We really enjoy working with the city of Rainier and the Rainier School District. and we want to continue that relationship.
Thank you. Questions on that, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, but I might mention in the past, I've talked with the school administrators and students that really think this is a valuable community asset.
Commissioner Menzer? Okay, thank you. Moving on to item N, authorize the sale of tax title property via private negotiation to Casa Bella Properties LLC.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. You have a map before you as to this particular property. I believe you discussed this last week. Let me refresh this. The Board of County Commissioners passed a resolution a couple of years ago asking the Treasurer's Office through the Treasurer Jeff Cadman to systematically go through the process of disposing tax title properties. Tax title properties are, as the county holds in custody on behalf of the citizens of Thurston, of the residents of Thurston County. And when the opportunity arises, the county treasurer's office goes through the process and surpluses this property. In this particular case, there is a property located near the Lake Sinclair, and this property is just about 0.32 acres and has a right now the proposed selling to a direct property owner has the value of $2,364.50, and that includes all the fees and associated tax penalties. In the past, I have given you what that really entails, this particular to the general fund. Taxation, this has an assessed value of $5,000, and the impact to the general fund in terms of the tax of property tax is just about 10%. Of $4.56 related to the actual the levy that is assessed to the this property. Treasurer Cadman is here to add additional perspective.
Good morning. Thank you for your time this morning. So as we discussed last week, this property appears to be an extension of an existing right-of-way, half of an existing right-of-way. The party that is interested in buying this owns the other half. It's 30 feet wide. And so it would be beneficial to the county because it gives that property owner a little bit more real estate that maybe they can work with in the future. It's not going to impact access to anybody's property. They've all got easements coming in from other directions. It's actually not ever been an official right-of-way. When I've researched, it seems to be some sort of access that was granted to somebody years and years and years ago and never utilized. And the back taxes owing when we got this in 2016 was $300, and the interested party is willing to pay $2,000 for this.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
I think I asked this question, did we go over this a week or so ago? Something?
We did this last week.
The access to the inside of that curve of that property, the access of property ending in 701 looks like it's cut off by this sale. Now, I don't know what that means. I don't know where their access is. But can you address that? You see what I'm talking about?
You see where the Lake St. Clair Drive is, that short little stub? They actually have an easement that comes off of the paved portion of that. The pavement ends right about where that boundary line is. And so they actually have an easement that comes off of that stub.
And that's the way they access that property?
Yes.
Okay, if they're, as long as we're not cutting somebody off, that's my only concern.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, that this sale is not gonna impact anybody's access.
Okay, thank you. That's my only question.
Thank you. Commissioner Menzer?
No questions.
No questions from me either. Moving on to department items.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for continuing to get disposed of these properties and get them on the tax rolls.
Doing my best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
For Commissioner's Office, 4A, Thurston County Local Policy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Back on July 19th, during agenda setting, Megan Porter introduced to you the policy related to the local policy as well as the social media. We went through that review. The result of that review is for you to direct it to bring an AIS to formally approve those two policies. That would be items 4A and 4B.
Okay. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
I think we answered this last week, maybe the week before. When did we talk about this one?
July 19th.
19th, okay. And we've got that worked out to where, I don't know, the prosecutor, the sheriff, those that have different.
Gone through the review.
Everybody has
Everything's all
reviewed
done.
this policy.
Right. Thank you.
Both, they went through an extensive review, if I may.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No, we went through, I remember the review on the 19th, thank you.
Okay, item B is also connected, which is the Thurston County Social Media Policy. We reviewed these items together. County Manager?
Yes, Madam Chair, we also reviewed that on July 19th, and the result of that review, the board provided direction to bring an AIS for formal approval.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions.
Questions, Commissioner Munster? Okay, moving on to Community Planning and Economic Development, item 5A. Set a public hearing on Development Code Docket Item A8, Habitat Conservation Plan Implementation Ordinance.
Honestly, I have to tell you that it's my so thrilled to present this item before you. It's one of the next few steps to consolidate the Habitat Conservation Plan. This Development Code Docket Item 8A deals with many different ordinances for the implementation of the Habitat Conservation Plan. And those amendments include adopting the Thurston County Habitat Conservation Plan, providing the rules for applying and issuing certificate of coverage under the Thurston County Habitat Conservation Plan, and amending Title 24 of the Curricular Area Ordinance and Title 26 Code Enforcement to add references to the Habitat Conservation Plan Implementation Chapter. So the Planning Commission has reviewed these items on many work sessions that include January 19th, February 2nd, and 16th, as well as March 2nd. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on April 6th, where accepted public testimony. And on the meeting of April 20, 2022, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to provide recommendations to the board to consider adopting the code amendments. So this particular item is for you to consider setting the public hearing for you to receive public testimony for October 4, 2022 at 3:30 in the afternoon. And before you can consider taking a formal approval of those actions. I have the Director of CPED as well as Chris Chapeau here to add additional perspective on this item. Chris.
Great, thank you. I don't have anything more to add. If there's any questions, I can answer those.
Questions? Oh, Josh.
I do have something to add. Joshua Cummings, the Director of Community Planning and Economic Development. I too am excited about this next step. You'll see that the staff has extended the public comment period. So setting the public hearing and then extending that public comment period to a 45-day period to allow for input from the public as much as we can receive and then process and bring back to the Board of County Commissioners. So it's a little unusual that the comment period is open for a little longer, but that's to allow for as much transparency and communication with the public as possible on this really complicated topic. So I just wanted to say thank you to the county manager, to the commissioners, and to staff for putting this item together. We have been working hand in glove with the entire community, the environmental community, the building community, citizens throughout Thurston County, and I think this is a good next step in this process. So just wanted to say thanks.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, if a citizen wanted to review this info that we're contemplating, where would they go to look?
Chris, is that hcp.org?
It is hcp.org and under our documents tab.
And if that was a printed document, how many pages would that be, Chris?
That's a good question. Hang on, I have it right here. In total, the amendment is about 41 pages, and that's all the amendments put together.
increase during the, when we placed the legal public notice on the newspaper announcing setting the public hearing. We state that any citizen can request a printed copy of that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, no further questions, ma'am.
Thank you. Commissioner Mensah, questions?
I guess anything so big that it has its own commemorative colored pencil set is within the 45 days of public comment. So is the planning commission unanimous on these recommendation on these ordinances?
Yes, they were. It was a unanimous vote.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to emergency services, item 6A, FEMA Public Assistance Grant Agreement, D20 2005 FEMA funding for January 2020 flood response.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you may recall, we had an incredible amount of rain in January. They created significant impacts related to the flooding and across the county. The president issued a disaster declaration which allowed FEMA to compensate for the costs that we have incurred in response to that emergency back in January 2022. So this particular agreement is with the FEMA to get the public assistance related to the costs that we incurred during the flooding, and again on January 2022, I believe. I think there is a typo in here. Is that correct?
Sorry, County Manager, this actually is related to January 2020.
Okay, so I'm confused. Please straighten me up.
I'm sorry, I'll step in here real quick. The Washington State Military Department reached out to Thurston County to advise us that there were funding opportunities still available for the presidential disaster declaration that was a result of the January 2020. You got to harken back to January 2020 flooding along the Nisqually River. And that was related to the public assistance that was available for that. So there isn't individual assistance. We talked about this last week during the meeting, but there was public assistance available. The public assistance was available for in a term of January 20th, 2020 through April 2024. Just a reminder that it takes time to compile all of the data and all of the finances related to this. And the Washington State Department reached out and said, hey, we have a little bit more funds that you might be eligible for, and we have identified some costs. The grant has a match requirement of 75-25 federal and state or local funds. And the final agreement would be made through amendments for projects submitted by Thurston County and authorized by the state. And so this is related to the public assistance that we provided or emergency protective measures. So those can be sandbags, anything that Public Works would have provided. So signage, staffing, all those types of pieces would be eligible for this. And it is for January 2020 Nisqually floods.
Well, thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
And I guess to alleviate any confusion that the public might have between individual and public, actually what this boils down to is this is actually reimbursement for costs incurred by Thurston County in dealing with this flood. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. So there's two separate thresholds that FEMA has when they do a disaster declaration. It met the public assistance, so assisting in the emergency protective measures that the county provides, and the next threshold up would have been individual assistance, and this particular disaster did not meet that, so that's correct.
Thank you.
Thank
Yep.
you. Commissioner Mensah? Are we requesting the full reimbursement?
We are requesting reimbursement for all eligible costs associated with this.
How much is it?
Unfortunately, it's variable because we're still identifying costs.
Okay.
So at this time, it's hard to nail that down, but it will be, well, we can give you the total that we submit once all the amendments are in. But that's just variable right now.
Okay, and I have a question, I guess, about the 10%. If it varies, I mean, we might get more money, we might get less money. I'm looking at Robin.
I want 10% more.
Yeah, 10% more.
So the way in which I read this is that the 10% variance would be ultimately, and I'll have Robin and Ramiro step in here in case I overstep, but we see this as what ultimately is submitted back to the state. If there happen to be amendments based on that total dollar figure that are no more than 10%, that we would be allowed to manage those without coming back to the board for approval.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Moving on to public defense, item 7A, interlocal agreement, third amendment for City of Tumwater Indigent Defense Legal Services.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You reviewed this item maybe a little bit 3-4 weeks ago. So let me give you a background. Thurston County Public Defense provides a indigent defense for misdemeanor legal services to the City of Tumwater. Under this proposed agreement, the City of Tumwater will pay Thurston County Public Defense a total amount of $479,356. That includes the all the actual cost for Thurston County Public Defense personnel assigned by the City of Tumwater misdemeanor cases, or obtain on average cases through the outside counsel not to exceed $449,356. This has been a long-standing partnership with the City of Tumwater, and this is a renewal of that contract to provide those services. The performance of this agreement is from January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2024. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to take those. If I cannot answer, I can certainly bring back those next week, since I don't see public defense being part of this meeting.
Questions, Commissioner?
No questions.
Commissioner Munster? And I don't have any questions.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to public health and social services, item 8A, 2022 additional consolidated homeless grant housing contracts.
Thank you. You may recall the Consolidated Request for Proposals RFP was issued in February 2022, which included funding sources for the Consolidated Homeless Grant, as well as House Bill 2163, as we know it, as well as House Bill 2060, and the federal home funds. The county at that time awarded contracts through this RFP in June 2022. In July of 2022, the county received a notice from the Department of Commerce that would have additional funding through the Consolidated Homeless Grant. So in order to expedite the additional funding that we receive from the state, we use the same request for proposals and add additional funding to those already contracts that have been awarded. This particular approach was introduced by the technical team to the Regional Housing Council on July 13, 2022. And the Regional Housing Council agreed with that proposal from the staff and provided recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners to award this additional funding. That includes the Family Support Center for the targeted prevention, CHJ targeted prevention, for an additional $58,000. To community services, the Drexel House for $40,000, the Panza Quixote Village, $35,000, and also to the Portland's Angels for Angels, that will be to continue the Scattered Site program for $207,588. This performance of this contract goes from July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. Tom Webster is here to answer additional questions or additional perspective.
Tom?
Good morning, Commissioners. Tom Webster with Public Health and Social Services. That was an excellent summary. I don't have anything to add, but happy to answer any questions.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions.
Commissioner Munster? Okay, moving on to item 8B, RFP for housing and essential needs and rent assistance providers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me give you, and again, a little bit of background. The Housing and Essential Needs contract was stated to the Community Action Council. The Community Action Council declined to continue to have a partnership with the county, which put us in the position for us to do some temporary, short-term as well as long-term strategies as to how we need to continue to provide housing and essential needs. Some of the items the board approved is to have a little bit of a bridge First of all, the county stepped up to continue to issue checks, I believe, for July and August. And also the board approved to increase the contract with Life Storage to continue go for another 3 months to provide the services to those individuals involved within this program, knowingly that perhaps we're going to be bringing a more long-term strategy for the board to consider as to how we're going to be providing the services in the long term. And this is the item for your consideration, is for you to authorize the issuance of request for proposals to secure the services for the housing and essential needs beyond the 3 months where the Life Storage will end at this point. This is a significant contract that includes just about $3.2 million that comes from Commerce. There is this is related to rent assistance. That is not related to the rent assistance we have dealt with through the pandemic. This is an ongoing. So this is the next step again on the long-term solution to continue to provide services for the housing and essential needs to those residents and the dependent of this program. Tom, you're on.
Thank you. So I did want to add some clarification. So we're actually requesting, there's 3 separate buckets of money within this RFP that we would like to issue. The first is for the HEN program. And I do want to correct, and I'll correct the AIS for next week, that our expected funding amount will be approximately $2.2 million to continue the HEN. The total program is approximately 3.2, but because, actually it's a little bit more than that, but because we've issued that contract to Live Stories for $1 million for the next 3 months of payments, that will reduce that amount that is available. So I'll make that correction to the AIS for next week. In addition to the HEN money, we are also looking to RFP for a permanent rent assistance program under a new 1277. That's a document recording fee under the state for a new permanent rent assistance provider. So this is separate than the COVID specific rent assistance funds under the TRAP or ERAP programs. So this is a new ongoing permanent program that will be funded from the Department of Commerce. So we're looking to identify a provider for that program. That is, there's approximately $2 million in funding for that program. And then finally, there is approximately $150,000 to $170,000 that will be available for rapid rehousing. This was a second contract that Community Action Council did not renew, that will be going out and seeking a new provider to implement that rapid rehousing program. So there's 3 types of activities we're going to be requesting for. Applicants do not need to apply for all 3. They may apply for just 1 bucket, or they may apply for multiple. But rather than having 3 separate RFPs, all of these programs operate under the same Department of Commerce Consolidated Homeless Grant Guidelines. So we thought it made sense to combine them into one RFP since there's a lot of overlap in the types of activities they do, but they are separate and distinct activities. And we will change the date. We are hoping to issue this this week, but we will change those dates and hope to issue the RFP on August 18th, next Thursday, following your approval next week. And then we'll also adjust the dates that applications are due.
Thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
Tom, is this a timed element that's causing some setback because of, I don't know, our past contract practices, or are we kind of up against a time issue here?
For the rent assistance programs, or?
Well, no, just issuing this RFP.
There's not a specific deadline, but we do want to identify a new provider to get them in place as quickly as possible. So there is some urgency, but there's not an immediate deadline that we're needing to meet. So I think by approving it next week, we can get someone in place here in October and have them ready in the coming months. For the rent assistance activities, again, not a specific deadline, but as we wind down the TRAP and ERAP funds, we do want to have a new provider in place to pick up so there's not a long gap within our community for rent assistance availability. So not specific deadlines, but there is urgency to move forward to make sure these resources are available to the public.
I guess then my follow-up question would be to the county manager. Is there any reason that we couldn't put this on our agenda for Thursday like we're doing the Black Lake? If this will help folks, that's all.
Yes, certainly, we can do that.
I don't know what my seatmates feel about that.
I just didn't want to take the time that you have for your regular check-in. So I want to be respectful of that, but certainly if the board sees a sense of urgency to bring this on Thursday, we'll add that onto the agenda.
My own sense is
Yeah.
that Tom's been
Yeah.
working kind of under the gun right along, and I'm just wondering if this wouldn't help.
Yeah, no. I'm in support of it, yeah.
Yep, okay, we'll bring this item for Thursday morning.
And then we'll have one less thing. Thank you, Tom.
Great, thank you.
Oh, did you have any questions, Commissioner Mensah?
No, I'm looking back at my notes from last week and it's all there. I just needed a little refresher. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't have any questions, thank you. Okay, moving on to Public Works, item 9A, interlocal agreement for sewer collection and treatment service with the Department of Corrections.
I believe you reviewed this item last week, Madam Chair, Commissioners. And this is a new local agreement. It was put in place back in 1999, where at that time we provided sewer services to the Maple Lane School located in Grand Mount area of Thurston County. This agreement had a performance period of 20 years, so that lapsed back in 2019. And also during that time, that property changed ownerships from at the state, and now the current owner is the Department of Corrections. And this is an opportunity to address those changes as well as address the expire in local agreement and bring back some of the new fees and billing processes related to providing sewer to this particular property. I'm not sure if you had any questions related to this last week, but Joe is here to answer any questions, if any remaining concerns you had.
Joe, anything you'd like to add?
I think Ramiro provided an excellent summary. I don't have anything further to add. Thank you.
Commissioner Edwards, questions?
Have we raised the price? So that we come out.
No.
Perhaps the fees have been updated.
Yeah, okay. So they have been updated. That's.
And I guess one thing I would add, Commissioner, is we update our fees annually, and part of this agreement is memorializing the change to billing Maple Lane as a commercial customer. So we are currently billing them like we would any other commercial customer in the Grand Mount area. That's memorialized in this agreement.
Thank you.
Commissioner Mensah, questions? No questions for me, Joe. Thank you. Item
Thank you,
9B, adopt resolution of findings and determinations for proposed Patterson Lake Management District number 23.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. This is a follow-up. The next steps in the process as a result of the public hearing that you held back on July 26, 2022, where you received significant public testimony in support of the board considering the formation of a lake management district in Patterson Lake. And this is again, the next step in the process is for you to consider adopting a resolution of the findings and determinations for the proposed Patterson Lake Management District formation, which in this case is number 23. Tim is here. I know there's a lot of history in this, and Tim is here to answer any questions the board may have.
Tim, anything you'd like to add?
Good morning, Commissioners. No, only, well, I guess I would add that the resolution at a high level does three things. It affirms the board's position that the proposed LMD is in the public interest, which is a statutory requirement. It also affirms that it is financially feasible as proposed, which is a statute item. and it authorizes the vote of the community. So it is, as the county manager outlined, it is the next step in a long process for potentially forming this district.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
Just real quick, what you just explained, Tim, is that actually what we're referencing here when we say resolution of findings and determinations? Is that what that means, basically?
Yes, that's correct. That is stating that you have gone through your public process in the form of your public hearing that was held. And following that public hearing and following a review of the petition, you are finding it in the public interest.
Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Menser?
I don't have questions. I had raised questions about the upland areas that were included. I got some helpful information from the steering committee chair. I got some helpful information from Tim, and I took a site visit and walked the trail myself. So based on all of that, I'm going to support the resolution as it's been proposed by the community. If anyone's curious, it's a 4-minute walk from down the trail to the thing.
And, okay, I don't have any questions, Tim, thank you.
I do have one question.
Oh, you do? Okay, never mind, Tim.
And that question is, seems like we've received some criticism about delay. So here we are, like 1 more week. Is this something that would be worth putting on our Thursday agenda? I don't know where we're at, but I don't want to be accused of delaying this in any way, shape, or form.
So
If we need to do this.
as you may recall, some of the feedback that you received from the steering committee was related to the delay, because they would like to have that in place for the next 2023 property tax assessment. That is not possible even if you take an action this Thursday.
Okay, that's what we need to know.
And also the board had a conversation, they were going to be bringing this matter during the budget process, that perhaps you may consider loaning through the general fund, the fees, they can probably start working in 2023. I think that was the conversation that you had related to the feedback from the steering committee related to the delay. So at this point, getting through the process of moving to Thursday ahead really is not going to make any difference in order to meet their expectations of having that property tax in place in 2023.
Thank you.
Because if we're going to be able to help them, it's going to be through the mechanism.
Right.
But yeah.
And I think that's the conversation that you had, and I responded on those terms based on the board's discussion to some of the members of the partisan lake.
Okay. Moving on to our last item from our sheriff's office, item 10A, contract for full-time school resource officer in Nisqually Middle School and the 7 elementary schools in the North Thurston School District during the 2022, 2023, 2023 through 2024, and 2024 through 2025 school years.
Yeah, similar to previous item you reviewed earlier today, this is to provide resource officers to the within the Thurston School District, particularly to the Nisqually Middle School and 7 elementaries within the school district. This is for there's a commitment for 3 years actually. In the past, it has been a year-by-year basis. So this is great to see they have a commitment for the next 3 school years. I believe the $95,000 on the sheriff radius on a yearly basis or throughout the 3 years. I believe it's on a yearly basis, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Every year, 95,000.
Okay, questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Menser?
So it's like we're talking about one individual that then rotates around through all these different schools.
Yeah, I believe there is an assignment, a specific assignment for a sheriff deputy to be part of this resource officer, correct?
Yeah, and if you don't mind, commissioners, I can provide just a little bit of history on this one here. So we originally, we've actually been in this same rotation for the last 4 years. Initially, we had a 3-year contract. The city of Lacey actually annexed Nisqually Middle School, which is the primary school where our school resource deputy is housed. And so we did a 1-year extension last year while the city of Lacey and Lacey Police Department determined how they were going to handle that. And we, earlier this year, we believed, we had information from the Lacey Police Department that they were going to take over and respond to Nisqually Middle School. We had some conversations with the North Thurston School District, and they had a strong desire to have the sheriff's office remain in the elementary schools. We were able to come to an agreement with the school district and with Lacey Police Department that we're going to retain the exact same footprint as we had before. We'll work directly with Lacey Police Department and their school resource officer at River Ridge High School. And so we were able to reach an agreement to continue having our one school resource deputy that will handle Nisqually Middle School and also respond to calls for service at those elementary schools. So it's not necessarily common to have school resource officers at the elementary schools, but we're fortunate to be able to do that here in this school district.
Okay.
Maybe additional background perspective when the board created this position, I'll say maybe 2-3 years ago. It was a brand new position the board created by adding a new sheriff deputy related to this particular. It was pending the continued partnership and financing from the North Thurston School District. And that's when my reaction to see a 3-year commitment is absolutely on point. So, and again, it was a proviso related to this particular funding source. So that will carry on the sheriff deputy position for the next 3 years. That's a great deal. Thank you, I'm sure.
With that, that would conclude our agenda. We have our standing items. That is our agenda for our meeting of August 16th, 2022. It is 10:22. Let's go ahead and take a 15-minute break, and then we'll be back. And we are back from break. It is 10:39 a.m. We left off with proclamations and awards. So I'll pass this on to Jamie Caldwell, and she'll also cover the advisory reports and commissions.
Jamie Caldwell, Clerk of the Board. In interest of time and lack of outreach for the proclamation for Farmers Market Week, we removed it. I've reached out to the local farmers markets several times over the past couple weeks, as well as the staff members that Commissioner Edwards had suggested last week. And so far, I've either gotten declines or no response whatsoever to attend. If I do end up receiving a response, it can certainly be added, but at this time we removed it. For the boards and commissions, the only update I have is that we received 2 applications for the Historic Commission that they're going to be reviewing tomorrow, August 10th, and I will provide the applications along with their suggestion after their meeting on the 10th. Otherwise, outside of any questions, I don't have anything else.
Questions, comments, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions.
Commissioner Munster?
No.
Okay. Thank you. With that, PIO check-in.
Good morning, Commissioners. Megan Porter, Public Information Supervisor. I have no specific updates for you this morning.
Thank you. Commissioner Edwards, questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Munster, questions?
No.
Questions for me? Okay, briefing, public hearing decisions pending. We have 3. The first one, Development Code Docket A27, Non-Conforming Code Follow-Up, and this was a briefing that we had last week. County Manager.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. You had a briefing on August 3rd in the afternoon related to this particular item, as the Development Code Docket Item A27. And this related to the non-conforming code of the chapter dealing with the critical area ordinances. In gist, this particular item allows for administrative processing on non-conforming uses, mainly related to single-family use and single-family homes related to critical area ordinances. I believe at this point, unless you have any questions, we'd like to hear from the board. Do you have any questions related to this particular item, or would you like to provide direction to bring the next step in the process of formal AIS? And I believe the next step is to set a public hearing. Is that correct? So, Chris and Ashley, I believe, is here.
Okay, Chris, Ashley, anything you'd like to add?
No, well, we're just looking for direction from the board. Just a reminder that this particular amendment to the non-conforming chapter of the CAO is really more procedural than it is anything else. It does maintain all of the critical area protections.
Commissioner Edwards?
No questions. I'm satisfied with the briefing.
So you're ready to move forward?
I am.
Commissioner Menser?
I ran out of time to work through some of the documents I wanted to work through, but since this is not binding me to any position and simply setting a public hearing, I think I'm okay with that piece of it, because I'll have plenty of time to review what I need to.
Okay, and I'm ready to move forward with the public hearing as well and setting the public hearing. So,
So you will see an AIS on your upcoming, on one of the upcoming meetings for you to consider setting a public hearing.
Okay.
For you to take public testimony before you consider taking an action.
Perfect. So we will be seeing an NIS to set a public hearing in the future in one of our agendas.
Thank you.
With that, our next decision pending is Country Club Road Funding Strategy Memo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me just make it up. This is a follow-up to the July 20th briefing related to the Public Works presented to the board for alternatives to deal with the this particular issue, the culvert replacement on Country Club Road. And some of the alternatives that we provided, I believe the board was leaning towards the preferred alternative, which is the full replacement with a bridge, and that has a cost of just about $9.1 million. The next step in the process result of that briefing was for Public Works to bring back a financial plan for the board to consider. And the financial plan is included in your packet. And barring any additional questions, any additional conversations, my 2 cents is a good, robust financial plan for the board to consider. And as a result, for the board to provide direction to continue with the process of the development of their preferred alternative related to this this project. Public Works Director Jennifer Walker is here to walk us through this financial plan.
Good morning, Commissioners. So hopefully you have the memo in front of you and you can see what we're proposing, what we've laid out, as the county manager mentioned. The little over $2 million from the county road fund, reallocating $1 million out of additional funding for future fish passage program, the $1.56, almost $1.57 million from REAP 2 from fish passage program. So 1.57, excuse me, from the fish passage, and then 150,000 from the storm and surface water utility, and then an additional $1 million from the REAP 2 funding that we've asked for. And then we also were looking at in a $4.35 million request from the Public Works Trust Fund. They have right now $115 million for construction projects. Interest rate on that would be 1.39%. Again, keeping in mind, we are looking at still submitting for grants, 300,000, and then another 5 million that we'll hear about how successful we were at the end of September.
Okay. So questions, Commissioner Edwards?
What about that payback? What's the payback source of that $4 million?
The county road fund. So we would be looking at
over how long a period of time?
20 years.
20 years.
So it'd be 260 here. It says that right here on the back page. Yeah, it says the loan will be repaid over 20 years and payment would be approximately 200.
Is there any possibility of FEMA money that could be utilized here because of damage to the culvert, having to do with storm damage, heavy rain, whatever Ben was talking about, something we're putting in for reimbursement that has to do with down in the valley, but why couldn't this possibly be eligible? Because this damage was brought about and the collapse was brought about through heavy stormwaters.
What I would say is we are submitting and following up on every opportunity to get reimbursement, but that's not going to be immediate. I don't know, Teresa, do you have additional information you want to add to that?
It's not likely that FEMA money would be applicable here because the problem occurred before the storm event that the FEMA money is covering. And so the damage isn't attributable to the storm. So it's not likely.
We have talked to them about it, and that's the feedback that they've given us.
Correct.
And also FEMA is a little bit different. I think the board is tracking on this. It's more of a reimbursable basis as opposed to apply for a grant. So the cost needs to be incurred, and if there's an eligible item related to any type of emergency, then the reimbursement will have to be requested.
Commissioner, answer questions.
We had also inquired about ARPA infrastructure Was that rejected as a potential source or?
So it's possible that ARPA could be used for a portion of this award, but the entire project would not be eligible. Only a small part that's directly related to the culvert
What makes it
and
difficult and
stormwater.
not related to infrastructure was specific for water and sewer projects,
Well, it's
you know?
apparently the last iteration of the guidelines has expanded that to culverts, in particular, but on a limited basis. So you have to show though with infrastructure projects, especially projects of this magnitude, what were the alternatives, whether their funding sources are available. There are limitations on the ARPA for things other than specifically stormwater and or water and sewer.
Yeah, I mean.
Teresa, you can mute, Teresa. We can hear the background. Thank you.
Commissioner Mentor, did you have?
Well, setting that aside for a moment, another question I had was the $150,000 storm and surface water utility. What does that number come from? Why is that the number chosen versus more or not including that at all? What's the thought process there?
It's specifically related to the pipes, catch basins, treatment devices that will be installed as a part of this project.
Which your analysis says is the limitation on what can be charged to that fund?
At this time, that's the direct nexus, yes, to the fund.
Okay. And which of these sources, let's say ARPA money became available, which of these sources is kind of the biggest stretch in the sense that where would you want to make let's say we use $2 million of ARPA money. Where would you take the $2 million out of in this chart?
The road fund, we'd want to reimburse the road fund first.
The $2 million at $2,334,000.
That would be Public Works recommendation, and I
Right.
might recommend to the board that you do not use REIT. Because there are other uses you could make of REIT. So the board has choices there.
Okay. Well, I was asking Jennifer's opinion, so I appreciate that. And thank you, Robin. Those were my main questions. For you guys.
Yeah, no, I had kind of along the same questions on how did we settle on, you know, the figures that we're seeing on each fund. Jennifer, can you walk me through that? And you answered the storm and surface water utility one, but I would like to know how each of the figures was chosen.
Sure. So the REIT 2 from the fish passage program, that's what we have remaining. So we basically just reallocated the remaining figures that we had on the money that the board had already authorized. And then the additional $1 million from REIT, we looked at, requested, and we also looked at based off of our expenditures in the county road fund balance, where are we? What could we draw from there? And then looking at what the public trust fund had at least available in terms of their pool of money that they would be issuing loans on. And we thought that was a reasonable dollar amount to come back and ask for from them, just looking at what they've awarded contract or loans for on previous projects, previous construction projects that seem to be within the range. Versus saying we're going to borrow, 9.1 million. We didn't think that would, we would compete real well if we did that. And keeping in mind, I'm sorry.
Keeping in mind what?
That, we're still applying for $5.3 million in grant. So.
And if I may, thank you for that clarification, Jennifer, because what you see in front of you is a financial plan that can be implemented. But that could change, and on page 2, the department outlined the potential grants that are coming up, and also they're outlining if those those grants become a reality, then the reduction on the county road funds, READ 1, and any others will change. Even on the public works trust fund, there may not be a need to get the loan if we get the grants. So this is a financial plan. I don't believe the public works trust fund will be applied tomorrow if the board approves it. It will be something as a financial plan when we get to construction. So this is, I believe, a robust, a well thought out financial plan, and things change and could change in the positive if we receive those grants the department has applied.
Well, I'm kind of with Commissioner Menser on if we have ARPA funds available. I would definitely like to see that as a possibility. Take the stress out of some of our other funds. And I mean, if we get the grants, great, right? But that's not a guarantee either. So, if ARPA is available and there's a possibility we can use some funds, I'm in support of that. Commissioner Edwards, do you have a
I'm with
question?
the chair on that, so I don't need to reiterate that, but I do have some other questions.
Go ahead, sir.
It seems to me in that National Association of Counties magazine that we get, there was something in there about bridges recently. I don't know, can anybody comment on that?
The infrastructure, the federal infrastructure bill.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was. I can't remember what it was that I was reading.
It's the federal infrastructure bill that deals with bridges, but this will not qualify.
Well, it's in need of a bridge. It's not a bridge, but it's in need of a bridge. Why not check into something like that as well? I don't.
Because there is not an existing bridge.
Well, it's just a small one right now. It's a
And that is,
small waterway.
as you may recall, there is 2 elements as to how federal government supports the funding for a bridge, an existing bridge. One is structurally deficient, and the other one is functionally obsolete. An
Well,
existing
it meets
structure.
both of those
There's not a
criteria.
bridge right now.
Well, we could call it a
A
bridge.
culvert's a bridge for
Yeah.
fish.
It's somewhat of a
You may
bridge.
recall the 20 feet magic number in which
No
the
way
federal
that
gov-
can,
in which the federal government qualifies what is a bridge structure.
well, we can
Beyond-
stretch the definition some. Okay, if I lose that. Under that Build Back Better program, didn't we just get, isn't there new money coming there on infrastructure somehow for local government? Seemed like I read something about that, or was that in a discussion from the county news on the computer?
So the infrastructure, the federal infrastructure bill has a lot of money. Some of it is going through the state. Some of it is, there are opportunities to apply for competitive awards directly with the federal government. The allocations aren't fixed. And one of the recommendations at the NACO conference was that if you're really interested in getting all you can from this particular bill, which is extremely broad, they recommend hiring a consultant to help us get those grants. So that's something that I think the county should seriously consider. But there's not been an opportunity to discuss that yet.
And also a big portion, some portion of the funding comes through the MPOs. And in this case, the MPOs, the Metropolitan Planning Organizations, and our MPO is the Thurston Regional Planning Council.
a question that we should explore, actually.
Well, money is coming through them.
Some money may come through them, or we can go directly to Department of Transportation. There was a lot of information at the NACO conference that I've not been able to, I've not had an opportunity yet to discuss.
So the state is distributing portions of that money to the MPOs. At this point.
That may be their plan at this time. They don't necessarily have to do it that way.
They may not have to do it that way, but that's definitely how WashDOT is doing it, and then adding funding to some existing programs that they have. But
Money is going through many existing programs. That is how the bill is structured.
And Commissioner McKee and Commissioner Edwards are part of that conversation related to the criteria, what TRPC is utilizing to distribute portions of that funding.
And that's been a very hard conversations to say, right. Go ahead, Commissioner Mensah.
So just looking at next steps, I want this to move forward. If this is the best strategy, if we can improve on it, great, but I don't want to delay because I want to make sure we get the construction done, on the timelines that we have.
I appreciate that, Commissioner. That is the intent of this, just to make sure that we provide to the board a financial plan. It's a plan. Whether the ARPA funds can come, we'll adjust this, but at least we have a good plan to build this piece of infrastructure. And I agree with you, and I will ask the board to provide direction at this point to continue with the development of the engineering plans for the preferred alternative. That was the punchline of my request related to this item. Things may change, obviously, whether we get grants, whether ARPA funds can mitigate some of the funding, and the funding will change as we move along. But that was what we left on the July 20th briefing, just to make sure that you understand that we have a plan, barring any changes. And I believe we have a good plan. And I will ask the board to provide direction to continue with the development of this project.
I'm ready to go with my, with Vice Chair here. But I know when you go to those conferences and they talk about those issues, there's so much information coming at you, you can't get it all. And are there, contractors or those that are kind of circling around that we offer the expertise for applying for this, that, or the other? Are some of those folks there and looking for work, if you will? And would it be a worthwhile investment in hiring one of those groups that allege they can do stuff like that?
So the information that I brought back, I specifically went with the intention of learning more about the infrastructure bill.
Right.
And got a lot of information that was provided by NACO and other experts that were not consultants. But yes, of course, there were consultants in the vendor hall who were looking to help us. I do believe that it would be worth our while to hire one of them and explore what we could actually, they are experts not only in the bill, but in the grant writing, and they would position us to get the money and help us get the money. And if we structured the contract such that they were paid based on how much money the county was actually able to secure, then it would be more than worth our while.
Worth their while, but get the money off of our local taxpayers.
I guess I would say we certainly can explore that. I think there is some value in terms of understanding the bill. I think in terms of writing the grants, I guess I would say that our staff has proven themselves as being quite effective in grant writing, so.
I absolutely agree that Public Works staff have done a tremendous job, but this is a huge bill and it's not only about Public Works.
Could you elaborate on that, Robin? What do you mean?
There is at a minimum broadband money in the bill, and other types of projects that government can undertake that would not necessarily go through the Public Works Department. So I think that there are opportunities for the county that a consultant could help us explore on a very broad basis?
Maybe we can take that item on a different conversation. Let's go, if I may, go back to this item. Is there any questions from the board before I may ask you to give direction to continue with the process? And again, this is a financial plan.
I got a lot of questions, but I'm also ready to move forward.
But I will ask, I think the sense of urgency is before all of us, and I will ask the board to support this plan and continue with the development process, meaning the design of the preferred alternative.
I'm there with the rest of the commissioners. I think we need to move forward. I mean, if the grants come through, that'll be fantastic, and I'll be very happy. But, you know, and if we're able to get ARPA funds, great as well. But I think it's a plan, and yeah, I think we need to move forward on it. So
I hear 3 thumbs up on that. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. So Jennifer, green light, preferred alternative, and we'll keep the board appraised as to how that develops, the project itself, as well as the any additional funding that might become available.
But I do want to touch on that infrastructure money that we're talking about and the possibility of a consultant. Because I was there with Robin and Jennifer, I completely hear you on it. Like I hear, but I also, just the information that we were given at the conference, it just seemed like something for us to consider at least, and look at all of our options. Because there was a lot of new information that we didn't know that was presented there. And I think just for us to consider, and as you know, ARPA, the guidelines were constantly changing. I feel like we're going to be facing the same things with this infrastructure bill. So just at least something for us to chew on and see what our best options are.
Absolutely.
Next is the Black Lake Regatta application.
Yeah, I'm not expecting you to take an action. This is a brand new item on your agenda today. I do have a formal action for you to take this coming Thursday, as we discussed, because that has a time-sensitive, this is a time-sensitive item. This is related to the sheriff's office receive Regatta application from Seattle Drag and Ski Springboard Association to have a boat event held on Black Lake this weekend from August 13th to August 14th. This is a yearly event where I believe the sheriff's office provides some support to this particular event. And if you have any questions, I believe, Under Sheriff Brady is here. But again, I'm not asking you to approve this application because I will bring for you formal action this Thursday. So I didn't have the 24-hour
Notice. Okay, Under Sheriff Brady.
Hey, good morning again, commissioners. As the county manager mentioned, this is another long-standing group that typically does these races here on Black Lake every year. And I'm not sure exactly why this one came in so late. I do know it's a pretty extensive process that also involves Department of Fish and Wildlife as well for the application. So we do apologize for the short time frame on this one, but the event, if approved, is going to be held this weekend.
Been going on for many years, the same activity, so no questions.
Questions? No questions for me, Under Sheriff. Okay, with that, we'll move on to commissioner items. Commissioner Edwards, do you have any?
Well, I'd like to hear from one of my seatmates maybe about that, from the port of Tacoma. I guess I've got something coming up. Some of you have met already, or
Yes.
is there anything going on there?
I don't know anything about it.
Oh, okay, well, I don't either, so I guess Commissioner Mejia knows something about it?
Yes.
What's up? What am I faced with, or
So
what are we doing?
last year, me, the county manager, Joshua Cummings from CPAD, as well as Chris Chapeau, went over to the port to talk about Rocky Prairie.
Port of Tacoma.
The Port of Tacoma, yes. Basically, we told them we were looking into HCP mitigation land, and that, you know, we wanted to see if some of the land that they had qualified for mitigation land, and you know, we would purchase it from them. They didn't really seem interested at that time. And they said that they were looking at other options. They, because of course we would only be able to buy small parcels, we wouldn't be able to purchase the whole, but I thought, you know, like, well, my whole conveyance to them was like, you know, it's gonna be, you know, I know there's been issues in the past, I feel like this is a win-win for both of us, but they decided that they weren't interested in that option at that time. So we didn't hear from them for a long time, and then I met with them yesterday, and they are wanting for us to consider, or basically asking us to go and survey and see if some of their land qualifies for mitigation land now that we have our permit. And so I think maybe last year they didn't think it was gonna happen and that's why they weren't interested in it, or maybe some of their offers fell through. But now they are wanting basically to see if some of their land qualifies. I told them that, you know, the next steps would have to be, you know, with staff and see if, you know, they are the Tenino pocket gopher is what I heard. And so, but we would have to see if there's parcels on them that qualified for mitigation land for us. And so that kind of was the tone of the conversation that happened. And go ahead, County Manager.
Thank you for the update. Also, when we met with the port, I think it was more of a package deal, as I recall. The package deal included perhaps segregating some of the land they have for us to utilize and pay for. And the package deal was a commitment from the county to change the land use of the remainder. And at that point, I believe I talked to the executive director of the port. There was a little bit a difficult process to deal with the package deal because the board cannot commit through a new local agreement on a land use change without having a due process. And the due process is included on the docket, go through the public hearing. So that was the at least from my perspective, the rub. Has that changed? From your recent conversation, because if it remains as a package deal, it seems to be very difficult.
So they didn't mention the package deal, right? They did say that they would hope that the other pieces of land that didn't qualify would be used for something else. And again, I was like, well, you know, we're only interested in the purchasing of the mitigation land and to see if it qualifies. And from there, you know, we would have to see if it qualifies at all even, or how much we need from that. So I didn't make any sort of, I was just like, let's see if it qualifies first, and then we can have conversations and kind of just left it at that. But it wasn't the executive director who spoke, but it was actually one of, I believe it's a consultant who spoke. So.
Okay. Well, when they're telling you how the land needs to be used for something else, maybe they should be reminded that they were paid $14 million because they argued to the court that Thurston County's interference made the land valueless, essentially. So that's why they got such a huge judgment. So essentially, they've been paid for that land, and they should just donate it to conservation. And that should be done with it. That should be the end of it. So any concessions that they try to extract out of us, I have no interest in. Just put that on the table.
Or at least let's get a good deal.
I mean, if we can work something out that helps our citizens, you have to move forward and not always dwell in the past. I'm a big proponent of that philosophy, but this one sticks, this one is hurtful.
Okay.
And to have those folks try to make those kinds of arguments just to further their profit when they've already profited and damaged Thurston County politically in any number of ways is just beyond the pale.
So that was the line of conversation with the Port of
Okay, I
Fema
just
that I
wondered
had.
what I had coming.
Why are you meeting, but I mean, where are they going? I mean, I haven't heard from them at least.
Well, because I think it's coming your direction, possibly. I don't know.
They're just gonna talk to each commissioner.
I just heard about it this morning.
The first I've heard, they have revived this conversation.
Well, yeah, I was really surprised when I met with them. I was wondering kind of where this was gonna go, and I was very surprised that they even circled back, right? Because I felt when we went, it was with the best intentions. It was to really start a conversation going about the future of Rocky Prairie, and we're like, you know, and they shut us down. I mean, it was.
At least from my point of view, it was the package deal that it was, and I just said it to the executive director. There's absolutely no way that I can bring a package deal to the board in those terms.
Yeah.
If you're interested in parceling the property you have that we can purchase, or they have, we'll be more than happy to discuss.
Yeah, an arm's length transaction, you know, we have to do those arm's length transactions anyway to get HCP land. So the fact that it's gonna, as a byproduct, benefit them, I can swallow that. But I cannot swallow them coming and extracting like additional
Land use
changes, promises, because they need value. They got paid for that land. And that's all that I need to hear about that.
So yeah.
I do, that was just quick. I was just wondering what was coming. I do have a question about the cancellation of the meeting this morning. And my question is, or this afternoon, I guess it is. We don't have a regular meeting day, I guess, anymore, right? Is that kind of where this is coming from? Like, we used to always have a meeting on Tuesday. It was designated, so we didn't have to worry about the posting.
The previous ordinance had a specific time at 2 o'clock Tuesdays where the board meets, have a board meeting. And as you may recall, the argument on the previous ordinance, that it was the only regular meeting. Any other meetings was special meeting. That was the argument.
Okay.
And so this new ordinance clarifies that. So any regular meeting is from Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. That's how you state it, with other provisions with it. So there's no longer outlined the 2 o'clock meeting highlighted specifically, because that is considered a regular meeting as
Among other regular meetings.
as any other regular meeting. But also within that, just to make sure the public is tracking and all the regular meetings that you have on a weekly basis, we need to post a schedule of those meetings the Friday prior to the upcoming week. So what happened is this particular meeting was not listed on the schedule.
Yeah.
So, but the agenda for the afternoon board meeting, it was posted. So from the OPMA point of view, we made the intent because the agenda was posted for this afternoon. But really, it was contrary to the ordinance the board just passed on July 19th. I mean, that's really what it was.
Which is kind of a compromise against the other alternative, which is some counties say regular meetings, Monday, 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock, Tuesday, 9 a.m., 2 p.m., Wednesday, 11 and 3. I mean, delineating out specific times, but you and I know, we all know that sometimes on Wednesday, we're meeting from 8 in the morning till 5 p.m. I mean, this board cannot do its business on a Tuesday afternoon at 2 p.m. and everything else is special. And we really can't be locked into a particular even set of times because our schedule varies every single week, is completely different. And so the compromise is, well, we'll let the public know on the Friday before what you're gonna see for regular meetings of the board in the upcoming week, and we didn't get that done.
That's
So as a courtesy, we're saying.
And we as a staff, we're learning and we'll make sure that is.
Oh, I'm not being critical at all. I'm just trying to figure it out that if there's a way that we can still maybe accommodate, because as far as I know, the Tuesday meeting's been going on for many, many, many years. And I've often wondered why it's almost like we have to have a meeting, but it's really not. We can choose not to have a meeting on Tuesday, like after holidays and different things like that. And there's no way we can put in there to make it, I'm trying to simplify it, that we can put in there that we're still meeting on 2 o'clock for most of our most of our commissioner decisions, or I don't want to change the title or get in a pickle or anything. I'm just trying to figure out, is there an easy way so we don't end up with this situation through some clerical error? You know, that's all I'm looking for.
No, I think this, for me, it's a learning process.
Okay, so this will smooth out.
Trying to implement the new ordinance. And even on online, we specify how the public testimony should be given. We have oral testimony on Tuesday afternoon, 2 o'clock. It is just, it was not listed on the schedule. That's.
Are we still gonna continue the normal, on Tuesdays, we're gonna try to keep everything the same? Okay.
Really,
good enough.
Really, nothing else is more structure on the new ordinance.
And I have one more quick issue, but I don't wanna hog the show.
So I wanted to just touch base on tomorrow. We're meeting in the afternoon with DNR about Summit Lake. And I just thought we could discuss quickly how that meeting, we only have an hour, and I could use that hour up with my own questions probably. So I'm just wondering how we're gonna, maybe the county manager has an idea, maybe the chair has an idea. I'm happy to, it's my district and all the citizens are all coming to me with all their input. I want you to ask this, I want you to ask that. So I want to just be respectful of everybody, but also get my stuff in because the citizens are kind of relying on me to ask certain things. So I don't know.
I'm with you on that.
So I thought maybe if we, give them a chance to, give them 10 minutes or 10 minutes or so to just kind of say what they need to say, and then we start asking questions. Kevin Hansen, I've gone through with him. I want him present because he collected the information that we included with our letter and their letter back. I don't know if my seatmates, I would encourage you, they have a 5-page letter. It's got a bunch of attachments, but I would encourage you to at least look at that 5-page letter to guide what questions you may have. I'm happy to.
Response.
Yeah, it's a SEPA response to all of the commenters. A lot of it was,
not just the county.
not just the county. In fact, the tail end of the letter really was about citizen comments that had nothing to do with our letter. But anyway, I walked through that letter with Kevin just to make sure I understood what his concerns were about their responses and things we might want to ask. So when I get a chance to ask questions, I may ask, and if I get responses that I'm not scientifically equipped, I may want Kevin to share his response to the response, so to speak. So anyway, I just want to lay this out because I don't want it to be disorganized. We only get an hour with them. Yeah.
A couple of thoughts on that. I really appreciate that DNR has come in to address the specific questions the board had related to Patterson Lake and the Summit Lake. Too many lakes. and the tree harvesting. And I think there is going to be an opportunity for the board to ask questions. I will strongly encourage Kevin not to be part of the conversation unless he's here to provide.
Yeah. Well, I heard they were going to have their hydrogeologists explaining, and if they've got their hydrogeologists, we're at a disadvantage if we don't have our own.
No. Kevin is here to provide support to the board, and I think you leading the questions, I think, is more than appropriate.
Okay.
But also, I think we, if I may, have to walk a fine balance because they're coming to provide a briefing to the board, and
well, that's what I wanted to ask, because I wasn't even part of the communications between the county and them, so I don't know what was proposed exactly.
They offered to come and provide their perspective as to their rationale to go through the harvesting process and the SEPA process. So it was an offer for them to come and have a conversation, a brief to the board in response to the letter that you sent to them related to this particular timber sale, whatever. So tomorrow when we go through the process, I think we need to probably be respectful of where they're coming from without getting into an argument in a way, but certainly Kevin is here to provide that legal, that technical perspective, and that is absolutely on point. And you leading the questions, I think, is extremely appropriate. Because the question needs to be generated by the board based on their presentation.
Okay.
So,
Well, I'll start with a few and then I'll definitely pass it on.
I'm not gonna get involved in it that much. I'm listening to your questions and I'll
So
hear
I
their
will
responses.
ask you for questions first before we switch on to Commissioner Edwards or my questions, just to be respectful of, because I know you've done a lot of work on this. I would like for us to have a discussion between the three commissioners after that, maybe sometime next week, or because we'll probably hear from those residents as well, right, after this briefing. I'm sure they'll be tuning in, and I think it will give us all some time to hear what DNR has to say, hear from residents, and for us to have a discussion on it.
One thing I want to say, because I didn't quite understand it till I went through their letter and talked to Kevin. I do want to give them so my understanding is they have, in addition to pausing the sale, and now they're restarting it.
Yeah.
But they've scaled it back in a few different ways. So our letter did accomplish something. It may not be the 100% of what the citizens would like, which is no cutting, but I would like them, DNR, to have a chance to explain, hey, I understand you've made some modifications. Can you explain that? Just so the citizens hear that our efforts had an effect. The cuts they went from 4 units to 2, and they reduced the size of the 2. So that's significant potentially to the amount of, all the detrimental effects that we're worried about are still at play, but at a smaller scale. So I both want to give them a chance to explain what they've done to respond to our concerns, let the citizens hear that, but then have us question them, why should we believe that what we're left with is still not going to be detrimental?
Because they had a chance to briefly review that letter.
Yeah.
And they do say they also are concerned about, the downstream effects. And I believe they have done an effort. I don't know what the scale down is, because on your letter, you asked them not to clear cut, but be strategic.
Yeah. And they're not really doing that.
Yeah, so reducing the footprint of the timber harvesting, I don't know the area, to be honest with you, but it would be great to hear what that is. And if the reduced scale don't have a detriment downstream effects, and that will be their argument to make,
A
right?
lot of the thrust of their letter is, it's kind of under the surface, but it's there, and Kevin definitely saw it too. It was kind of like, we acknowledge there's going to possibly be effect, but the effect is primarily because you've allowed development along the shore. And whatever we're going to do to add to that is minimal compared to the effects coming from the development itself that Thurston County permitted, so it's kind of your fault. And that's kind of a negative spin on kind of some of their response, but
Yeah,
I think that argument is in there.
I keyed on that.
And there's nothing I can do about that. I wasn't part of any of that.
Well, and with all the respect, they're not in the position to tell the county how development should occur in county's property and the property owners who live in the county. That's aside from.
Okay, well, I just wanted to throw that out there so we're somewhat prepared. And again, if you can take a look at that 5-page SEPA response letter, it'll help guide your questions you might have, because I kind of went through that, and I'll walk through it, based on the conversation I had with Kevin, but there's, for example, Commissioner Edwards, there's a section about the herbicide application that they respond to, and they say it's going to, I know you're really interested in that, and they say it's going to be hand applied or whatever, not broadcast by the machines or whatever, and dealing with a specific problem. They're expecting this kind of maple to come up, and they want to stop that, so big leaf maple or something. And so if they see that, which they expect they will, then they'll hand apply to stop that, because they're going to try to plant a different kind of tree there because there's root rot or something, and so they want to plant a tree that's going to be impervious to that. I don't know, it's in there, but
Yeah, I think that was probably some of the mitigation measures they're planning to do.
Yep.
But I was a little bit too high level to determine what.
Yeah, I think the the ask from them should be, explain what give us an overview of your modified plan, you know, and highlighting where you've made changes from the original plan. And then once they explain that, I say we just start asking them questions about it, because I don't want them to suck up a whole hour.
If you give me the floor at the beginning, I can probably.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, guys.
Will that work?
Okay, any other commissioner item?
My only other commissioner item is something I raised to Robin while Ramiro was gone, and it had to do with that situation with the citizen that had put out money toward a,
Yes.
and you were gonna check and see what the history
Yes.
was and all that.
So there was no contract. Was that Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes did not have a contract and did the work without authorization to the county. However, we do recognize that he has done that work and we will reimburse him. But we will also provide him notice that in the future, we will not be reimbursing him for any work that was done outside of a contract, a signed contract with the county.
Thank you.
I guess I'm not familiar with what you're talking about.
I told you about this, you might remember it was like a planting exercise or something, and he had
You're
purchased
talking
all
about
this
the farms over on the trail. or-
Yes.
trees and soil,
okay.
and
The county
county-
had been going to get a grant, we chose to not take the grant,
nobody
Mr.
informed
Barnes.
him.
Mr. Barnes didn't need to be informed,
Okay.
but,
He works with
because
Ralph quite a bit.
he
Yeah, okay,
does.
I see.
I got it,
Yes,
okay.
he had planted a bunch of trees and wanted to be reimbursed. So we will reimburse him, but we will also let him know that in the future, if he does not have a contract with the county will not be paying for his services.
He's done a lot of good work.
He has done a lot of good work, and we want to recognize that, but at the same time, he can't just send us a bill.
Okay.
Yeah, he can now act as a freelancer with the county.
Well, and choose to do whatever he's going to do, and then expect us to pay with or without a grant.
Interesting, all right.
We'll pay him.
Those are all my items, Madam Chair.
I was gonna say something and then I saw something. Wausau next week, the Attorney General is going to talk about the next steps that each county must take in regards to the opioid
Yeah,
settlement.
That was my next one. Okay, good.
So if any of the commissioners are interested, it just popped up right now and I
That's the
was like,
Monday, like virtual assembly.
yeah,
Right, but I think it's at 1 o'clock.
no, it's from noon to 1. Yeah.
That's the normal time.
Yeah, so they're just that's gonna be,
Okay, yeah, I'm available to go to that.
Oh, yeah.
I know we've been having a lot of conversations about that opioid, so it's finally, so we might be seeing something. I know Commissioner Edwards has asked many times. I can't remember what I was gonna bring up. It was, Commissioner Minter, so I had to jump off at the tail end of agenda setting last week. And I didn't catch it. I thought you mentioned attending something and you mentioned my name and then I had to jump off.
Spokane meeting, maybe?
It
Spokane
was
Health Department?
about a new committee,
Sea level rise?
the sea level rise committee?
Yeah, we agreed that we
Oh,
would.
that's right, that I would attend the first one.
Well, if you don't have to. It was just simply that the next meeting was last Friday at
Oh.
noon. So,
I
and I checked with the chair, we were just being invited. There was no particular need for us to be at that one. The next one's in November. I'll be primary, Commissioner Mejia will be alternate. And we were gonna, county manager, have you send a letter just formally accepting the county's ex officio seat that was offered.
Do you have the request?
I do,
right?
yeah.
Could Tomasita send that to me and I'll drop the letter?
Yep.
Okay, that answers that one, those. Okay, Commissioner Edwards, did you have?
Well, I'll follow up on that sea level rising thing. I've been around here the longest, and I haven't seen any change. If you go down to KGY and look at the barnacle lines and stuff and the rocks and everything, they're still the same. I've asked that question, how come? And apparently there's a subterranean activity of Pacific plate and something other plate, Cascade plate coming together, things changing. Okay, that's just a little piece of that. But on the lake issue itself, on Capitol Lake, has there been, because I guess you've been in some of these meetings, has there been discussion on if the dam is removed? I don't know where we're at as far as, I don't know, has that been decided? That has not truly been decided yet, has it?
It's been decided as the preferred alternative for the EIS.
Right, but
that's.
The Corps of Engineers or something, don't they have something to say about it? Army Corps of Engineers, I thought they controlled that. Anyway, there's the issue of king tides and rain and flooding downtown. And I don't know if that has been discussed at all as the result of that flooding was controlled. I don't know when that dam was put in, late 50s or when, I don't remember now. I didn't pay attention in those days very good.
Yeah, it was in the early 53 or something.
Anyway, whenever it was, that kind of controlled the flooding problem. And the reason it was able to do that was because when there would be a king tide, for an example, then by having the dam there, it didn't back up and fill the lake up, you know, that king tide. So consequently, they were able to control flooding downtown. I don't see in any of the information that I've been reading about that there's any thought about how to address that problem in the future if there's no dam. It's going to flood downtown. And then if you talk about sea level rising and that becomes a fact, which I know Olympia's, one of their plans is to have some kind of a wall down there somewhere. I don't know how that's all gonna work. I don't see it working, actually. I don't see it working together. And so we might have a better thing at the lake, but the downtown's gonna flood about every 3 or 4 years. And I don't know that, I'm just saying in the past, it's never happened like every year. It's just under special circumstance. King tide, a lot of rain coming down the river, you know. There's no dam there to control any of that. King tide's already got the lake backed up and nowhere for water to go.
We do have a 2,000-page binder. We got one copy. It might be living in my office, I don't know.
I made a copy of it.
That has a flood, that has, I think, a flood analysis for the different, choices. Managed lake,
right?
Hybrid, estuary, that might answer your question. I don't know offhand how that analysis looked. It didn't look different enough that it rose to a big discussion point when we were, so I'm guessing that it wasn't looking like it was gonna be a huge difference.
Right, that's my concern.
But I don't know.
That's my concern, because maybe only every 10 or 15 years is when those combination of things happen.
Right.
But when they do happen, it's devastating, and it's gonna be worse and worse as time goes on, especially if there is substantial sea level rising. I'm not saying there is or there isn't, but we're planning for it, so it sounds like there's kind of a plan. Anyway, so I think we're missing the boat if we don't have the awareness that this has happened many times in the past since 1860s, when Olympia was, or 1840s or something, when Olympia was first settled. It's been a common phenomenon. Not common, but maybe every 10 years or something, so it is an issue. And I think it's worth thinking about. The other piece has nothing to do with flooding, is this meeting over in Spokane with new Board of Health people.
Oh, right, yeah.
I don't see anything about opioids, so that's probably more about just strictly membership and Robert's rules, whatever, and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if they're gonna talk about
Is that the agenda?
potential things coming, you know, like an opioid settlement money, how would we, what's some suggestions on how to think about what's happening?
Is that a training?
It's just a training.
To the new makeup of the Board of Health?
I'm gonna
It's-
attend this.
It's for new Board of Commissioner members. I thought you were gonna go.
I am going.
Yeah, and I thought, I don't know that I'm gonna go, but if I go, goose up a Tuesday meeting, I see that.
Oh, it does? No, I think it's a Wednesday and Thursday.
I know, but how do you get
have
there?
to travel the day before.
No, well, you know, they usually do these so that you start in the afternoon so you can travel first thing in the morning and that.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
So you
So
can
I've
just
done that.
fly out early Wednesday morning or fly out late Thursday
You
evening.
did that for the last
Stay one day. That's how they usually structure it.
So
Yeah,
let me
that's
know
why they're covering
who's
the
planning on attending.
Well, I don't know that I'm going for sure, but I was just wondering
Just curious.
if you had heard anything as chair of the Board of
I haven't even
Health.
seen this agenda
Okay.
yet, so no, I haven't.
I mean, I'm just, that opioid thing that Commissioner
Is
Mejia
that
brought up.
only for new members of the new makeup of Board of Health?
No, it's for any,
It's for,
It started out being marketed that way, which is why I wasn't planning to go, but then they expanded it and said basically
I
any
would
more.
love to attend that one.
Yeah.
well, then why not? Why don't you?
Yeah, so I haven't seen the agenda.
I mean, this is the
I've heard
first
about
time
this.
Oh,
there's some things there that I'm interested in, but
So maybe I can,
yeah, well, anyway,
I can have Katie arrange stuff.
you can drive us over there, maybe.
No, I don't think I can drive it that long, 2 days in a row, we may consider flying.
Well, anyway, I just wondered
Yeah.
who's going, what's on, you know, does the agenda
I'll-
interest
I'll-
everybody?
I make copies of this if I may.
Well, yeah,
And then,
Robin got that off of one
I'm
of these
interested in
things.
attending and hopefully Kurt can come along as well.
yeah, well, I wasn't planning on going because I didn't know, and I was like, okay, you know, I heard Commissioner Mentor was going, but I hadn't really seen an agenda. There's some items that I'm interested in, and I think, I don't know, so now I'm debating.
Maybe we
whether-
can extend that invitation to the clerk of the Board of Health,
Right.
Jamie. So,
Yeah,
and,
that'd be
and
helpful.
to, council member Vasquez.
but do we have anybody else that might be wanting to go, because it's not until the end of the month? So,
I think we need to reserve, or say who's going.
well, yeah, but, I mean, if we don't have people picked, I don't know, maybe for a room, I don't think they're gonna care if we have a walk-in, it's a.
No, I don't think I think the current makeup is the only thing that we can go by.
Yeah, we're gonna be
There's-
stuck. I wish we
there's-
could send our new members,
Yeah,
but it's
there's
not
no,
possible.
there's no way based on what I've learned about the new process yesterday, they just laid out. I don't think the new Board of Health members will be in the position to go at this point.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
good enough.
Because we don't even work through the application till the 26th or
Yeah.
something.
I'm glad to hear that you might go. That might ease a little pressure off of me, to be honest with you. Although I do think we ought to put something on the master calendar, and just in case
Yeah, we will.
a couple of us go, you know, because I mean, I'm interested, I just don't know if I can make it all fit.
But, County Manager, did you hear the discussion we had? The Board of Health can speak about Board of Health.
Diane and I already, we had a conversation.
I've heard that somebody just saw that as an opportunity. So I think it was pretty quick, somebody making that.
Edwards and I had 5 minutes.
As long as it's related to
Yeah, Board of Health.
related
Oh, yeah,
issues.
we couldn't talk about county commission stuff, no.
Or even a health issue that might come before the
Yeah.
Board of County
So
Commissioners.
there's always that balance. So, but yeah,
Very interesting.
Okay.
Okay, any other item?
I'll make copies of this.
I guess not.
Okay, it is 11:43.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. You're adjourned.
Thank you, commissioners.